You are now watching On Point, a news and public affairs show from California State University Northridge.
Welcome to On Point. I'm your host, Anthony Lopez. Mental illness or mental health issues are common in the United States. According to the National Institute of Mental Health, it is estimated that 1 in 5 U.S. adults live with some sort of mental illness. These illnesses range from mild to moderate and to severe. Anxiety, depression, and OCD are a few examples of disorder people face throughout their daily life. Today, we will be discussing the mental health of athletes of all levels and overall benefits of exercise, whether the activities are done alone or in a team sports setting. Although playing a sport or doing any form of exercise does not make someone immune to mental health challenges, studies have shown that it can help in many ways. With us today, we are joined by bodybuilder Ricky Rodriguez and private first class Anthony Reyes. Thank you for joining us. So, you're an avid gym goer. You go, I believe, 7 times a week?
Correct.
What motivates you to go to the gym?
When I was younger, about 3 years ago, I was morbidly overweight, and that made me start to go to the gym because I was facing depression. I was at my lowest point in my life, and it fueled me to go to the gym to start making a change in my life.
And what stereotypes or comments were made towards you?
I was nicknamed, the old common names, fat boy, all this. All my life, I was scooped, and it fueled me to start going because it was something that I had to face with trauma that I went through all my life. Because I started since I was first grade. I was overweight all my life until started the pandemic.
Okay, and now, going to the gym obviously improves your physical health, but how has it helped you mentally?
It helps me mentally because I stress out all my anger, all my sad moments, the things I have struggles with in life, and I can leave it there all at the gym for 2-3 hours by myself, no one to talk to, just me and my thoughts.
And first class private Anthony Reyes, can you tell me what is your role in the Army?
Well, what I do in the Army is I'm an infantryman. For those who are unfamiliar with what an infantryman, if familiar with famous media such as Black Hawk Down, Saving Private Ryan, Hacksaw Ridge, those are along the lines of what I do. I'm the first one in the fight and the last one out.
And during, the Army and of such, you have a lot of combat. You have a lot of, action everywhere. Can you tell us a story of, where your mental health has been a key there?
Well, being in the Army and being in the infantry, we're usually out in the field, not showering for a week, eating some food which I would deem subpar at best. There's moments where mental health has been huge because if you're gonna walk through the darkest pits, walk through hell, walk around like you own it. There's no point moping around being sad. Sure, the moment is terrible, it's not the most ideal, but at the same time, don't be like, everything's sad and depressing, how could this get any worse? Because I could promise you it can always get worse. I had a friend of mine, God rest his soul, we were like brothers. We were close. I loved this man like he was my own. And I've learned very early on in life how invaluable it can be. I was walking around doing my normal thing. I suddenly hear a massive boom, dust cloud, and he screamed, "They got him! They got him! They got him!" He stepped on an explosive, and all that was left of him was just my memory. It was at that moment in time where I realized, one, what did I really sign up for? And two, I could sit around and cry, be sad, be upset, rightfully so. I just lost my brother. I lost my best friend, but I knew deep down inside he wouldn't want me to do that. It wouldn't be right, if that makes sense. So if I'm going to walk through something dark, I think of him, walk around like I own it.
And for both of you, how do you define mental health? Because many people define it in many different ways, and sometimes they don't even define it, they express it differently. But for you guys, how would you define mental health?
Mental health is something you deal with by yourself when no one is there to check on you. For me, is when I was by myself in my room, no one told me to lose weight. Nobody told me to make a change in my life. It was my own thoughts, my own mind telling me that I need to make a change, and it's not correct. I was about to be diagnosed with diabetes, and it's because of my bad habits I was creating. But nobody told me to stop. Nobody told me, oh, make a change. It was just my mind. And for me, that's my mental health, because it helps me to constantly go to the gym because of that, because I know my past self will always keep telling me, keep on going, don't stop.
And for you?
I think mental health for me is every emotion clashing together at the same time, because during the day I'll experience 5 to 6 different emotions in the span of an hour. It's probably not the healthiest thing in the world, but it's one of those things to where being able to go through that adversity with your head held up high and still be able to perform, get your job done regardless of just losing your best friend. You found out your wife was cheating on you, or a sibling or a relative of yours just passed away when you were out defending your country. Mental health is being able to say, I'm not my best, I'm not my most optimal condition, but I can still push through, I can still get the job done.
And I have another question for you guys. What are some resources that have helped you improve your mental health?
For me, I'm a spiritual man. For me, my faith as a Christian helped me with God, because I was struggling at my lowest point, and I came to God and I asked for Him to guide me, and I seeked for help and wisdom and strength, because it affected me a lot because I didn't have that. And that helped me a lot. And my mom, she also helped me to change my diet, to change my habits, and she was always to keep reminding me, like, you got this, keep going, don't stop, keep going. And that would help me a lot.
I think for me, it was definitely my battle buddies, is what we call our teammates in the Army, our battle buddies, or at least my battle buddies, because I always lived with the fallacy that I'm the only one doing this, I'm unforgivable, what I've done is I'm not worthy to be called a human being. But then I started talking to other people about it, and they'd be like, hey, moron, we're in the same boat with you. All right, you're not alone in this. There's thousands, if not millions of people who went before you who felt the same thing and ended up taking their lives because of it. Don't add to the statistic. Talk to me. Let me help you. I might not be a therapist. I might not be the guy who has all the answers, but all you need is an ear and a shoulder to cry on. I can do that for you, and that's what I try to be for other people.
And then my final question for you guys is, what advice would you give to people who are too scared or shy to express their voice or opinion in regards to this urgent topic?
For me, it's just everybody expresses themselves different ways, and it's many times, from my sense, people are nervous and shy to go to the gym because you don't know what to do. Many times, the people around you are there to help you. The only thing you got to do is ask. And just for me, with your mental illness, it can all come down to asking help, because people out there really are willing to help you. You have resources at school, you have resources in high school, places around the corner that can help you. And for me, it was the people around my gym that helped me the most.
I think for me, there's 2 things that have helped me personally to get through mental health and struggles. One, learn to laugh at your situation, because I'm a huge proponent of laughter being good for the soul. It cleanses the soul. Because 2 years ago, if you have told me, hey, you've been crawling around the mud, you have been camping, you have had to fight off a wild pig in the middle of some country you can't pronounce, I would have laughed at you and called you a moron. But fast forwarding now, I just laugh at it, because for me it's funny. And second of all, go to somebody you trust. It could be anybody, a mom, a dad, a relative, anybody, because I could promise you this, you're not alone.
Thank you. When we come back, we have a very special guest. A former NBA player and current ESPN analyst will join us. You are not going to want to miss this.
I'm an actor in an ad reminding you that if you're high, just don't drive.
Welcome back to On Point. If you're just tuning in, I spoke with former NBA player Matt Barnes about his opinion on mental health issues in professional sports. Today, I am joined here with NBA champion Matt Barnes. Matt, thank you so much for joining me today. I appreciate it.
Oh, no problem. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so I have a couple questions to ask you. You know, we're talking about the topic in regards to mental health. My first question to you is, how heavily discussed was mental health when you first were brought into the league?
My first year was 2002, so mental health wasn't discussed at all, unfortunately, particularly in the Black community. Whether we're professional athletes or not, it's not really a highly discussed topic. And only, I want to say maybe 3 years ago, 4 years ago, some professional athletes, Kevin Love, DeMar DeRozan, Paul George, guys like that, started to kind of speak out on mental health, because I think everyone thinks that, these guys are professional athletes and they have millions of dollars, so life is great. But, for the most part, that is true. But, a lot of issues from our childhood and past, and just issues having money comes along with that. So to answer your question, in the early 2000s, mental health was nowhere to be found as far as a discussion.
And you said issues in regards to money. Were there other issues involved as well? What were some primary issues that,
I mean, I just, I think obviously once you make it, everyone thinks you're a multimillionaire and can take care of everybody. And, a lot of younger athletes fall into that trap, trying to take care of family and friends and, pay homage to those who helped them get there. But, that money goes out a lot faster than it comes in, so to speak. So, that along with, once you're a professional athlete, you're a target. So lawsuits, frivolous lawsuits, felonious lawsuits, a lot of stuff, also comes with that. So, don't get me wrong, it was a great experience. I had a blast playing and, got a chance to make some good money. But a lot of, like Biggie said back in the day, more money, more problems. A lot of problems comes with that money.
Yeah, no, and I really love Biggie Smalls, so great quote right there. But how important is mental health across all sports, in the professional athlete world and et cetera?
I think it's very important because, whether you're basketball, football, baseball, we're paid a lot of money to perform, but, we're also human. So, human stuff happens to us, divorces, lose family members, a lot of different things, come while we're professional athletes. And although people think we're just supposed to be superhuman and block it out, sometimes we're not able to block it out. And a guy can have a bad game sometimes just because he had an off night, or sometimes because there's a lot of stuff going on in his personal life that, he has no one to kind of let that out to, kind of anyone to escape and kind of, talk about the issue. So again, I'm glad that, mental health is a topic of discussion now, and people understand the importance of it. Not only in sports, but I just think across the board in general.
Yeah, no, great point. And for you personally, how did you cope with dealing with mental health issues?
I was someone who came from a abuse, drug-filled, violent childhood. So unfortunately, it was kind of normal to me. Just chaos was normal. I kind of found peace in chaos. So I was someone who was very mentally strong and someone who also used cannabis. I started using cannabis in high school and through college, through the NBA. That was kind of always my go-to to one, relax and sleep, but then also try to block the world out at times where I needed to focus and, try to do my job. So I would say cannabis was the number one help for me. But now that I'm retired, I've kind of taken these issues head on. So I've, seek several different types of counseling, and, those definitely are necessary steps, I think, to kind of unpack the baggage that a lot of us have from childhood that we kind of carry and affects our lives in different aspects, but we don't really know where it came from. So one thing in therapy I learned was, a lot of the stuff that affects us to this day, I'm 43 years old, stems from our childhood. So again, now that it's a topic of conversation, it's nothing to hide and nothing to, whisper about anymore. I feel there's a lot of great resources out there for, again, not only athletes, but people in general.
And you mentioned resources. I believe therapy is a strong resource for mental health. However, we have some individuals who are scared or shy to go to therapy. What advice can you give to them?
I mean, I think although I've never, they say addictions, until you're really ready to admit you have a problem or you need help, it's hard to tell anybody anything, you know what I mean? Because they think, hey, I can deal with it myself. I don't need this, I don't need that. But I think you have to kind of have an awakening and really take a look at yourself as a person, and look at your environment and look at your job, and just kind of say, am I lacking in any of these spaces? Do I need help in any of these spaces? And then I think only then, will someone want to seek counseling, again, because I've, been told along the lines like, hey, maybe you should do counseling. And I'm just like, it'd go in one ear and out the other, until I really felt like I was ready to make that step for counseling. So a message I would share with athletes is, don't be afraid to be vulnerable. Don't be afraid to open up. Again, being a professional athlete, it's hard just to share our issues and our problems with anybody.
Yeah, no, great. Great point there. And I want to transition into the sports world. I know fans play a huge impact in mental health. You know, sometimes they boo the players, sometimes they cheer for them. Currently, the NBA, we have a lot of players, you know, who do load management and so forth, and they get backlash and negative responses, criticism. What can you say about a player who has been receiving criticism? How can they improve on that? Should they ignore the fans, or what steps should they take?
I mean, obviously, people always say like ignore it, but we live in a society, especially professional athletes, where we hear and we see everything. You know, so it can be someone, and I think that's due to social media. It could be someone in the middle of nowhere that no one knows and has nothing going for themselves, but you know, you put them on a social platform and their voice is heard around the world. So, you know, the one thing I would share with professional athletes is, you know, your mental health is important and you have to protect it. So if that means staying off of social media or staying away from certain situations, you should do that. You know, and again, that's easier said than done sometimes. But you know, professional athletes today, it's crazy because we live in such a news cycle, 24/7, 365 reporting, where people are always reporting on you, people are always critiquing you, people are always watching you, people always have cameras on you. So it's you can't really run from it. You just, again, like I said earlier, you know, I found peace in sometimes in hectic situations. So, you know, athletes kind of have to have peace and really be sure of who they are as an individual and not allow likes and comments and criticism to affect them. You know, obviously with me being older, it's easier for me to say that. You know, for some young people, that's tough because, you know, social media, they grew up with social media and social media has been such a crutch, you know, for them at times in a good and a bad way. That, you know, where players are playing bad now, you take a look and you're getting criticized on TV, you're getting criticized in the newspapers, you're getting criticized on social media. So again, you know, really protecting your mental health is the key to, I think, to longevity. Because if you start worrying about people's opinions that mean nothing and people's opinions that aren't going to affect your money, but they're still somehow finding a way to affect your mental health, you know, that can lead to other issues.
Yeah. And then my last question for you is, do you see mental health increasing or decreasing for the foreseeable future?
Um, I mean, I see it increasing from, I just feel like, you know, everyone has a story, everybody has a background, you know, whether you were rich growing up or poor growing up. You know, I grew up with some rich kids that had, you know, parents that were addicted to drugs and doing all kinds of different things. You know, I grew up poor and my parents were, so everyone has a different story. So I think now that mental health is more of a topic of conversation, I think more people start looking to get help, which I think is great because I think everyone somehow, some way probably needs a little bit of counseling and therapy to just, you know, navigate through this crazy world. So I don't know if it's going anywhere. I think it's only going to continue to increase because we live in such a negative, unfortunately, a negative society, especially for professional athletes. It's more common and I guess cool, you want to say, to criticize someone or disrespect someone than it is to show them love. So, you know, anytime, like I said, as athletes, we hear and see everything, and as just as many people who love us, probably more people that hate us, but they hate us for no reason. So, you know, they feel like they need to project their insecurities out on us. And, you know, even though the stuff may not be true, it may get to athletes at times. So I don't think mental health is going anywhere. I'm just really glad that it's not a behind closed doors type of conversation no more. It's out in the public. And I think, you know, I think that, you know, my fellow brothers in the NBA, they were brave enough to come out and speak on it and show everyone that, hey, although we are professional athletes, we do have issues and we do need help at times, just like you do.
Yeah, well, I appreciate your time and thank you so much for discussing this urgent topic about mental health, because a lot of people need to know that it is an urgent and important, you know, problem in the world, but there are solutions to it. You know, you're never alone. You have resources. Family is very important, but I appreciate your opinion and thank you for sharing your thoughts. Truly.
No problem, man. Good luck.
Thank you. I'd like to appreciate Matt Barnes for taking the time to do the interview with me. When we come back, our reporter Jake Dodd spoke to Dr. Carrie Hastings, LA Rams team's psychologist, to talk about the mental health of athletes in a professional league. Welcome back to On Point. Our reporter Jake Dodd spoke to Dr. Carrie Hastings, LA Rams team psychologist, to talk about the mental health of athletes in a professional league.
How important do you think it is to make sure that professional athletes are advocates?
I think that so many people, especially young people, look up to professional athletes as role models. And so if they can see, especially in a sport like professional football, to see, these big masculine guys admitting that they use a mental health resource and, seek help when needed. I think it sets a great example for the younger athletes and non-athletes to engage in help-seeking behavior, and not feel bad about it, and not feel like it's a sign of weakness.
A lot of people believe that they get paid too much to sit out because of an injury, because of because they're feeling sick or they're not feeling it. Usually they don't come out and say that they're taking a mental health break to stop a game or to stop them from coming into the game. But what would you say to that people that believe athletes make too much money to take time off for their mental health?
I think it should be taken just as seriously, if not more, than a physical injury. And I think that people jump to conclusions and make assumptions way too often when they really have no idea what's going on with that person.
Do you think that other sports need to do a better job in getting resources to players, or do you think that it's spread out pretty evenly and everything is going pretty smoothly in that regard?
I don't think it's spread out evenly. I think that other sports are starting to incorporate this. For example, Major League Baseball was really at the forefront in terms of getting mental performance people on staff, but not so much the mental health. And so they're just starting to integrate that resource into their teams. The NBA, has somebody overseeing the mental health and wellness of the league, but they are also still implementing specific resources into each team. So I think it's definitely catching on, but we still have some ways to go before we have sufficient options.
And I just want to end with one more question. And I wanted to ask, what's the biggest piece of advice that you would give to younger athletes that are scared to speak out, or just like you said, they may not have access to these things because of whatever their health insurance situation is like? Where is that first step if a younger person is wondering where to go?
Just, reach out to something or someone. It doesn't have to be therapy. There are now a lot of online resources as well. You can read about. There are also surveys and screenings that you can do online to kind of gauge where you are. And there are, great apps to use just for kind of daily mindfulness, such as the Calm app, Headspace. We use that in the league, and it's just having something. And I would say, make sure you have one person, because sometimes that's all it takes, is that knowing you have one person makes all the difference.
Thank you so much, Dr. Hastings. I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you very much. My pleasure.
I'd like to thank our reporter Jake Dodd and Carrie Hastings of the LA Rams for giving us a bit of insight on mental health. Now, we will speak to Jessie Lewis, a clinical psychologist student that is working on becoming a certified mental performance coach. She works for CSUN's women's tennis team on mental training and performance training. She also helps the men's basketball team with organizational skills. Thank you for coming by.
Thank you for having me.
So my first question for you is, what made you want to study about mental health?
Yeah, I think growing up, I was just very involved in sports my whole life, and I knew I wanted to pursue a career in sports. And then I also kind of found a love for psychology and just connecting with people. And so I think when I found sports psychology and it really emphasized mental health, I knew it was the field that I wanted to pursue.
Yeah, and as mentioned, it shows that you're working to, get your degree. How was the road? Was it difficult, easy?
Yeah, it has been difficult just because it's a new field, and I think a lot of the people that are established in the field have really created their own path. So there's not really one way to becoming a sports psychologist or a mental performance coach. And I think a lot of like mentors have helped me along the way to just work with different teams and teach different sports psychology classes at different universities, and yeah, just work with different athletes. So I'm really grateful for all my mentors and the experience.
And you're speaking about teams. You worked with the men's basketball team and women's volleyball team. I assume you were in the locker room with them. What advice or what complaints did you hear from them in regards to mental health? Did they push for it? Were they against it?
Yeah. So with the women's tennis team, I did a lot of like mental performance training with them. And yeah, I think it's just different with like men's basketball and women's tennis, just with different genders. There's going to be sometimes, different issues there. But overall, there's just a need to have sports psychologists and different mental performance coaches to really have someone to go to when they're dealing with different mental health issues. And so I think it's individualized, and each person maybe needs different things. But the various like techniques are amazing to use depending on what exactly it is that they need.
What would you recommend someone do to maintain mental health?
Yeah, as an athlete, I would suggest them to use the resources that are at their school, whether it's like counseling resources or mental performance coaches. I think there is a stigma, and there has been such a strong stigma in sports to not reach out to people and to just keep it in and push through physical and mental struggles. And I think now we're moving in the direction of like being able to talk about it and really seek out help. So, yeah.
And you mentioned you were an athlete yourself. Can you share a time where you struggled with mental health personally? How did you cope with it?
Yeah, I think growing up, so I played competitive soccer, and there was a time where I had to decide if I wanted to play collegiate soccer at the Division III level or just, kind of move on and give up my passion and love for soccer. And I think I struggled with the identity crisis that a lot of athletes go through, where their identity is so intimately tied to their sport, and you really have to learn how to build up your own like self-concept and self-image so that you can pursue different passions and maybe even pursue a career in sport like I'm doing.
Yeah, and as athletes, and I just think in general, we as humans need to have more conversations about mental health. How do you think we could, tell a friend or just start the mental health positivity train going?
Yeah, I think luckily for our generation, we've seen professional athletes like DeMar DeRozan and Kevin Love and Naomi Osaka kind of start the conversation that they have had these experiences with anxiety and depression, and that it's okay and that they can still perform at the highest level. So I'm hoping that has like a trickle-down effect for athletes to feel comfortable to have those conversations, and just in our position as a mental performance coach to just keep spreading the message that it's okay and you can still perform at the highest level.
Well, I appreciate you for sharing this, and thank you. Thank you for watching On Point, a news and public affairs show run by student journalists at California State University, Northridge. I want to thank our guests, Ricky Rodriguez, Anthony Reyes, and Jessica Lewis, Matt Barnes, and Dr. Carrie Hastings for talking with us today about the issue of mental health in athletes. This is On Point. I'm Anthony Lopez.